animated anthology series are far and few between. I can only think of 4 that come to mind. There's Infinity Train, which is obviously in a league of its own, is the best animated anthology series of all time. Then you got Disney taking its 2 biggest franchises and creating the anthology shows of Star Wars Visions and Marvel Studios' What If. Now all those shows are cool, but none of them are quite like Love, Death, and Robots. The Netflix original is so unique as it's formatted as a collection of animated short stories by mostly indie animators and animated companies, which I love. Each episode is loosely based on either, you guessed it, love, death, and or robots. But the opportunities for genres or styles are practically endless. Sometimes you get 3D video game cutscene looking animation. Sometimes you get more fluid Studio Ghibli adjacent stuff. This show truly provides you with the most unique and captivating viewing experience of any animated show I can think of. With all of that being said, I am so pumped to rank the top 10 episodes from the 3 seasons of the show that are currently out. I think I got a pretty good list this time around, but if there is a short you think I missed out on, let me know. That's enough build up. Let's get to number 10 on this list. I'm starting out this list with one of the most simple and most peculiar episodes with Season 2, Episode 8, The Drowned Giant. An episode that can be summed up pretty well by just reading this one sentence synopsis. The body of a giant young man washes ashore on the beach and becomes an object of fascination for the locals. And that's it. Body appears, people react. With such a simple concept, I couldn't really put it higher than 10, but part of me thought it deserved to be on this list. Or maybe I just wanted to talk about this wild episode, I don't know. I think that The Drowned Giant has this charm to it in a way that differs from any other time I've said a cartoon has charm to it. The human response, the wonder and awe that is so simplistically captured here is fascinating. It's also cool to see the interest of people dwindle, even though this is a fantastically unusual thing to have happen. The voiceover here by the scientist discussing humanity's relationship with death and decay really makes this episode what it is. If you were looking for an episode of this show to immediately make you question and contemplate, look no further than The Drowned Giant. Season 1, Episode 12, Fish Night, is coming in here at the number 9 spot. I was close to excluding this one from the list, for maybe one of the war or space episodes, but I decided I will show a little respect for this one. You will see later that I love the rotoscope animation style. I just think you're able to make such pretty visuals with this approach, and that reigns true here. The first half of this short is quite bland, but when the desert turns into a magical glowing oceanscape, it looks as impressive and magnificent as anything. It really reminds me of the Flying Whales short from Disney's Fantasia 2000. There really wasn't too much plot there, you're just in it for the wildly creative spectacle that is painted through these dreamlike scenes. What is really cool about Fish Night is how it's able to make something so peaceful and turn it into harmful in an instant. It demonstrates not just the beauty, but also the dangers of the ocean in a span of a few minutes. And all this happens in the desert, so that's weird, but you gotta love it. This show's most wild and head-scratching episode might just have to be Season 3, Episode 9, Jabaro. But in a good way, of course. It is coming in at the 8th spot. Jabaro is one of those episodes of a show where you don't really know what you just watched once it's over, but you also can't get it out of your brain either. Before I rewatched this episode for this video, it was at least 2 years since I watched the Jabaro episode. And even so, I vividly remembered the wild concepts and visuals that were demonstrated in this 15-minute short. The plot of a deaf knight interacting with a bejeweled siren, that's so fascinating. Those deeper concepts of greed, materialism, and this lust for riches are painted in a way I've never ever seen before. The episode feels like an unexplainable dream, with a very explainable message. Like, we don't know why Jabaro's healing was healed after he drank the bloody water, but it plays into his self-inflicted downfall, so it all makes sense. Also, it can't just be me, I just learned that Jabaro is the name of the guy, not the gold siren person. Huh. So I've got Season 1, Episode 3, The Witness, falling in at number 7. Yet another mini episode that is simple in concept, yet leaves you with so many intriguing questions. This episode is like 70% chase scenes, so you have to look around it as to what really makes it unique. It starts with that style. It's giving adult animated Spider-Verse, but in a hyper-realistic art style. The bold neon colors and the comic book influences make for a super dynamic watch. The other cool thing this episode has going for it is the inexplainable time loop situation that's going on. It is a really good trope shows can go for to add intrigue, and it is done wonderfully here. It's just a coincidence that back-to-back episodes here were animated by the same company, Pinkman TV. So shout out to them, they do some good work. Season 1, Episode 8, Good Hunting, is getting 6th place. This episode is one I knew had to make this list. It's one where I think of it, my mind immediately goes to Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. Good Hunting has several cool elements to it, such as the mystical shape-shifting fox spirits, to the super advanced steampunk technology set in this 19th century Hong Kong. The messaging about getting revenge and not exploiting humans for profit is kinda too in your face, but not to the point where it detracts too much from the quality of the episode. This episode has a gorgeous, cool color palette to it, and its 2D animation is one of the most fluid and intriguing I have seen from this franchise. Now, it's pretty obvious, at least in my eyes, that this short suffers from, being too short. There is so much lore and world building and development crammed into 15 minutes that could be explored so well if Good Hunting were its own TV series. But despite the pacing issues, this episode is still one of Love, Death, and Robots' brightest. Jabaro is totally bonkers, but the episode with the most beautifully wild writing might just have to be Season 1, Episode 14, Zima Blue. An episode about an artist named Zima and his mysterious artworks and past that I promise you could only work in the context of an anthology series. The out of this world script is paired perfectly with animation designs that are probably one of my favorites of this show. You'll see this animation company, Passion Pictures, higher up on the list. The way this style does shading and character design is so dramatic and brilliant. It reminds me of classic superhero genre animated shows, such as Justice League or Batman the Animated Series. This episode is also done in majority monologues, which is great because it makes the whole episode feel like one big mystical poem about a man, his transformation, and a shade of blue. It is really difficult to do this episode justice and put it into words, so just go ahead and watch this one on your own time. It's a work of art. Just outside the top 3 is Season 3, Episode 2, Bad Traveling. Spelled with 2 L's. I didn't know traveling was ever spelled with 2 L's, but it is here. Anyways, this episode is a blast. We got a boat, a storm, a crew, and a giant man-eating crustacean. Actually, what more could you want from something to try and entertain you for 20 minutes? This is one of the few horror-esque episodes with a deadly creature that I'm actually quite fond of, and there are a good handful of them. I find that this one is a bit more interesting as our crabby antagonist is able to speak, which leads to some really fun deal-making and manipulation stuff. It turns into an episode of the crew trying to decide what to do and who to sacrifice. Bad Traveling excels in subverting the audience expectations and having characters do what you may not have expected them to do. But it's not making the podium, so let's get to that. I already mentioned I love the art style of Zima Blue, so it's no surprise I've got Season 2, Episode 2, Ice, at 3rd place. A real simple, short story with lots to love. You've got this cool, deep color palette that sets the tone perfectly. I was almost shivering watching it. The cast is also charming, especially the dynamic that is had with our brothers. For me though, the highlight of this episode has to be the whale sequence. Seeing our cast absolutely book it across the sea of ice as they are being chased by these unknown, mysterious sea creatures is so fun. And then that payoff, when we get to see those beautiful neon glowing whales, it's great. I think this animation style works so well here. Everything just looks so crisp and epic. And yeah, there's some cool brotherly love moments, making the one without the gifts feel included tropes here, but I'm really here for this episode's visuals. They are incredible. Season 1, Episode 4, Suits, is an absolute blast to watch. This is the kind of episode that you can't help but love and have a smile on your face throughout the entire runtime. The whole episode is basically if A Quiet Place was animated, took place on a ranch, and those ranchers wore giant mech suits to destroy them. Sign me up every day of the week for that. We get some super cool and unique action sequences in this one, and eventually a really cool sacrifice by one of our leads. This is one of the episodes of Love, Death, and Robots that really feels the most like you were part of a video game, some kind of sci-fi third-person shooter. This was also, for the longest time, my by far and away favorite episode of this show. It is just a blast to watch people go haywire on alien creatures. However, there was an episode in Season 3 that overtook this episode in a heartbeat. And coming in first place, without a single doubt in my mind, has got to be Season 3, Episode 3, The Very Pulse of the Machine. I've gussed about this episode on this channel before, but I'd like to think I have better insight and improved dialect, so let's gush a bit more. The Very Pulse of the Machine is a beautiful work of art that has translated to the big screen so well. It is done by the same animation company that puts together the beautiful Fish Night episode, except in this one I think everything is just one notch better. I don't even think I need to rant about how gorgeous the art style and animation is. I'll just keep throwing clips on the screen for you all to see for yourselves. The concept of an astronaut trying to survive an unfortunate tragedy is something Love, Death, and Robots is quite familiar with, but it's done the best by far in this short. Our protagonist dragging her partner's body through the planet to get back to the base is pretty cool, but it's when the planet and drugs start to mess with Kibbleston that things really get interesting. The drug-induced dialogues that are delivered dive so much into purpose, life, and this machine-like planet, and it makes for such an insightful and fascinating listen. This short also doesn't have a happy ending. It's no doubt a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that us as viewers, and Kibbleston as the protagonist, are at peace with. After watching this episode again, I can confirm that it is the best that the show has in its arsenal. It just makes you think so deeply, whilst providing you with some of the most fascinating visuals from an animated show you will ever see. So, there you have it. The top 10 episodes of Love, Death, and Robots, according to myself. This is probably the most well-made anthology series of all time, aside from, like, The Twilight Zone. Let me know down in the comments if there's an episode I'm just blatantly missing, or if the list is 100% perfect in every way. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, so you don't miss out on any other cartoony content. I'll see you next time in the Cartoon Cabbage Patch.